It stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote for the record. Mayor Lindsay.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Howe.
Here.
Councilor Crane.
Here.
Councilor Weeks.
Here.
Councilor Hubbard.
Here.
We have a quorum. You may proceed.
This time I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda with the postponement of item H and the deletion of comments by Fire Chief Jason Vance.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll go ahead. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, did we have anybody that wanted to get up and speak to anything
Is there anybody on the clipboard?
not pertaining to this meeting? Mr. Battershaw?
Yep. Hi, Rick Battershaw. I've been here before, but I got evicted from a condo because a bug was left, or transmitter bug was left. So I've been living in a car and motel and checking out these communication towers around here that have a problem. I'm wondering if they did get that bug taken care of, because it jumped over on Officer Hicks' device in front of me when I was there complaining.
Mr. Battershaw, you'll address the council. I'm not following. Could you state that again?
There was a transmission bug left in those condos that I was living at, Crestview condos. And it jumped on Officer Hicks's phone through the Skype by Mondo, who wasn't even living there at the time. So you have a very bad security system around here, or it's definitely outdated. Because I've had the ads, I've got the bug numbers and turned them into Officer Hicks too. But when I was really out, I came across Cimarron doing laundry, and there was a guy in there that says Angel Fire told them about the water pressure problem around here. So you are getting things taken care of, because that'd be accounting. If it's done by somebody out of state, that's a federal offense. Because it's crossed state lines. It's not approved. Right? You're a contractor.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referring to, Mr. Battershaw.
I'm probably sure too. I've been told they don't know about the felons that have been working around here too. So,
Thank you for coming up this evening.
thank you.
If there's not anyone else, we'll move on to announcements and proclamations by the council. Nothing from the council. We'll move on to staff reports. I see Director Gilmore, did he make it in this evening? I believe so. In that case, I'll see Rocky tonight.
He's online.
Rocky, there he is. Our project director, Rocky.
Here I am. Mayor Lindsay, Mayor Pro Tem Howe, Councilman, Clerk Strickland, thank you for having me this afternoon. I'm going to give a project report on some of the things that I've been working on. And if that's okay with the council, I'd like to share my screen. Will that be all right?
Certainly.
Does everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'd like to go through these. The first project I'd like to talk about is the Workforce Housing 2025. I'd like to provide a status here. The environmental assessment is complete, thank God. And the 15-day comment period from HUD is going to end on June 2nd. So on June 2nd, we should be able to start turning in receipts and taking advantage of our monies from that grant. The site plan has been approved by P&Z. It's being presented tonight to council in today's agenda. So that Santos is going to be doing that. And the Clayton House models, the exterior color schemes, the skirting, along with other options, have all been recommended by our Workforce Housing Committee, and they've been communicated to sustainability partners. That was something that they needed in order to get Clayton Homes starting to think about, what they were going to start building. So what you see here is the Mariner. There's 18 of these homes that are going to be on our site plan. This is the larger of the two homes, the two models. It's a 16 by 76, 1,140 square feet. The committee has chosen metal skirting. The colors are going to match the exterior color, or at least be coordinated with the exterior colors. The appliances inside all of the homes are going to be stainless steel or black. They're all going to have propane heat, and the interior colors of each home will be coordinated with the exterior. So what you see here are 3 samples of the models. All of them, however, that bottom model doesn't have a gable, but every model that will be selected on the property will have that overhanging gable there. The other model is a smaller model. This is the Clark, and 12 of these homes will be on the site. This one's 16 by 66, 990 square feet. Again, metal skirting. The colors are the same, whether it's going to be the Clark or it's going to be the Mariner. They'll all have the propane heat, and all the interior colors will all be coordinated with the exterior colors. So what's currently in progress right now is the requested rendering from sustainability partners to actually render them with the exterior color choices that the Workforce Housing Committee has chosen. So we've barely seen them today. I couldn't bring them up to you to see, but it was kind of nice to see how the color choices that were chosen, how they look mixed together when they get on the site plan. We're also determining insurance costs options, the village versus the sustainability partners. Sustainability partners have the option of insuring these homes, but we're going to compare costs with our own New Mexico self-insurers fund to see which ones are more affordable for us, because inevitably that will affect the rents. We're also in the process of determining the maintenance costs and who is responsible, the village versus sustainability partners. So basically, in the end, it's going to be a list of all the maintenance costs, and we'll have an opportunity to choose some of those maintenance options to be able to do ourselves here in the village. I'm also updating the project plan as we move, and I'm seeking other funding to assist with the infrastructure costs. So the next steps after June 2nd, once we're approved to start using the monies, there's an overhead power line located on the southwest corner of the property that needs to be moved, and Kit Carson is aware of that at this point. So that's one thing that will start. We need to establish a contract addendum with sustainability partners to get that contract going. We also need to approve a variance for buried propane tanks, and actually I believe that Santos is presenting that today as well, and a conditional use permit for 30 homes on the R6 zoning. So we do need to complete the workforce housing governance. I think we've got some feedback back from legal, and we're now prepared to complete that governance. And then, of course, after June 2nd, we can begin the infrastructure work, which we're very excited to start doing. Something else that came up that was really helpful for us is that we had a conversation with HUD and the Housing New Mexico, And they approved us 200% AMI. And so originally the AMI percentage was 150%. And it was very difficult for us to imagine folks being able to move into these homes below that rate. And so what you see here is there's the HUD FY 2024 income limits that you see there highlighted in yellow. Those are the 50% income limits that HUD uses to calculate the percent of AMI. And so, for example, a household with 4 people in the family, as you can see there in bold, is 35,300 at 50% AMI. So we multiply that 35,300 by 4 for 200%, and that totals 141,200 AMI for a family of 4. So you'll see down below the village income limits for workforce housing 2025 are as follows. One person should make less than 99,000 to occupy one of our homes. 2 people combined income. That combined income has to be less than 113,000. 3 people in the home, the income level combined has to be less than 127,200. And then, of course, with 4 people, as I just mentioned, is 141,200.
So you mean each person?
Are there any questions on that before I continue?
So Counselor Weeks had a question and a good one.
Okay.
That 4 people, 3 people, that's the total 141,200 for the entire for everybody occupying that unit, including children, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. So it could be a couple and 2 children, or it could be a single mom and 3 children. Councilor Weeks?
So you have a husband and a wife, they can make them, if you have a husband and a wife and 2 kids, what's the maximum they can make together?
141,200. Any other questions? Does that answer your question, Councilor Weeks?
It did, I appreciate it.
I would just add, Rocky
Yeah.
asked for a little bit more than that.
Oh,
This has been an ongoing process with Housing New Mexico for some time now. What's tricky for us is all of these are using Colfax County average income. And if you look at the data, average income in Angel Fire is almost double what it is in the rest of the county. And so it puts us in a weird spot. But
That's much better news than what it was
Yes,
last year.
yes. At these numbers, it's doable, if not everything we asked for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it for the workforce housing update. The new fire station timeline, FY25, FY26. This is these are just estimates, but by October 30th, at the end of this season here, we hope to have the building design and architecture completed. We hope to have the site plan already created and established, ready for the building. I've talked to some folks that do the environmental assessment for toxic chemicals, not for plant life and animals laying eggs or whatever, all that stuff that happens there. But there's a company that's offering a free environmental assessment just for toxic chemicals, and they're offering to do it for the whole that whole center, the whole square, Liberty Square area. That way, if anybody ever asks, we can check that box off and say that, hey, our environmental assessment has been done. So that will also include the area where the fire station is going to be. We hope to have the infrastructure in place, utilities, roadway entrances, etc. And it would be really good if we can get it to a point where we have a foundation before winter. During winter, between November and May, procurement process is going to happen to select a vendor for the building structure. And we'll have to establish another procurement process to establish a vendor for erecting the building. For FY26, between June and October 2026, at that point, we hope that the exterior building can be erected. And we're thinking that it might be a metal structure. In talking to Chief Vance, that seems to be a feasible option, taking advantage of our $5.2 million grant or appropriation. During that same time, we would go through procurement and selection of a vendor for interior building construction. And then during that winter, between November and May, over the winter, we could have the interior build out of the fire station. Again, these are just estimates, but we have to come up with a plan and we're going to try to stick to these goals. Allen Fields, currently in progress. The infrastructure installation is progressing now with, right now, the main water line is 500 feet from being complete. 3 of the 4 fire hydrants have been installed with 850 foot of 6-inch water line, and the electric waste for a design from Kit Carson and Dennis Engineering. The next steps would be to determine budget available to complete the build out of Allen Fields. We're talking about the lights, the bathrooms, and concession stand. And July 1st, 2025, I put that date there because that's a date where I'm going to seek grants to complete the build out of Allen Fields and apply for the New Mexico Outdoor Recreation Division grant, which has $15.6 million available. So that'll be some grants that I'll be real careful to apply, and hopefully we can win. And at that point, the sewer infrastructure will go in when there is a commitment made for the bathrooms. So if we get the funding for the bathrooms, then we can move ahead with sewer infrastructure. And this was in communication with Kurt Epler. So the Frank Young Trail, currently in progress, we're evaluating quotes from Dennis Engineering and Consensus Group. I've received both quotes, and so we're in the process now of taking a look at those to see which quote which vendor we would select. We're also obtaining complete access to the trail resort property. Now, as you know, that trail has some resort property that needs to be, we need to have some easement or access to. And so I've had a discussion with Patrick West, and he was going to get me an answer this week, and I hope to get that answer as to whether we can have full access to the trail all the way through any property that the resort is we're intercepting. Next steps would be July 1st, 2025. I'll establish a contract with the engineering firm of choice, either Dennis or Consensus. By October 2025, we hope to complete the engineering of the trail. And by November 1st, 2025, I want to apply for the Tier 2 Trails Plus grant, which is $500,000, and that will help out with actually completing the work necessary for that trail. I've been working on security cameras. There's a company called LEM Systems, and the security cameras were successfully installed at the streets department. I talked to Carly this morning, and she was pretty happy with them, and they've given some good training for her. And I think maybe Kurt is probably next to get some training for him on how to utilize those cameras. And the next installation for these security cameras is going to be our very own village hall. And I'm planning on that happening at the end of this week, Thursday and Friday. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer any on any of the projects that I'm working on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lira.
Okay, very well. Thank you.
Up next this evening, we have our planning and zoning director, Reg. Bourgeois.
Bring up the PowerPoint. Can you go ahead and back and start? Mayor Lindsay, Mayor Pro Tem Ho, and all of the council members here. First thing I want to give you is a few statistics of what's been going on over the last, I've been here about five and a half weeks now. We've pulled in 24 permits, 15 of which are new construction. That represents about a 47% increase over the same time period last year. I've got 7 more sitting there on the desk. The office has been extremely busy, especially with new construction and your single family homes. With that, I want to give you a little bit of an update of where I'm going with the office. As I took over the job, thank you to Santos Martinez. He's helped me an awful lot consuming from a fire hose with all the different actions that were ongoing when I got here, and then, of course, the increase of workload. It's a bit of a one-man show, and as you're looking at me, I'm an old guy. I can't remember stuff, I have to see it. I'm a vision kind of person, I'm an IT kind of a hobby guy. When I walked into the office, first of all, I'd like to make sure that you understand, I'm just informing, not really looking for a decision, but any guidance or any questions you may have, it would help me in the next couple of weeks. Go to the next slide, please. This is what I took over. I walked into the office, and again, I'm not trying to talk about something that's been negative in the past. We've been very, very successful, but I couldn't get my head around it. There's paper, there's files, there's filing cabinets, there's boxes from various scanning and so on and so forth. And of course, I'm not familiar with any of the background. So when somebody comes through the door and asks me a question of the status of something, it wasn't just a deep dive. It was a deep dive into paper, much of which is handwritten. And you know, there's a big difference between 686 Deer Trail and 688 Deer Trail, and you can't read any of the handwriting. So what it caused me to do from my background was to start looking at how do we automate this? How do we get this thing so that I can read it and that I can search, I can query, I can find things. And so what I've done is I've started to put it into a database, an Excel spreadsheet that eventually can be into any database. I started with 24 and 25, and I'll be working in the future. I'll give you a little bit of a roadmap here. But anyway, that's what you took over, and I'd like to highlight that fourth bullet was the toughest thing of everything, was reading everybody's handwriting. Next slide, please. So the advantages of going digital, I kind of touched on it. You got data integrity issues. Is it Angel Fire? Is it Country Club? Is it CC1? It matters to the computer when you start searching for it. Okay. Is it CC number #1? You see where I'm going? And that's what I was encountering as I was putting it into the database. So I had to come up with rules and standards, if you will, of how you do the nomenclature. The next thing is quality control. When I go back into the historical files from 2016 to 2023, was the same thing being said the same way? When I have a deck, is that an addition or is that a remodel? Or just our definitions clear? So I've been working on that. And another thing that I found is when Santos or I were out of the office, there goes the whole expertise. Nobody can answer a question other than when we'll be back. Okay, so I wanted to be able to tackle that a bit so that somebody could at least see a snapshot in time, even if it's last week. They could say, Reg is going to be back tomorrow, but this is what I know from last week. And sometimes that's enough to scratch the itch. And the disadvantages, time. This has been incredibly time consuming. It's going to take some time to get it up and running. I'm predicting that I can get this ready by Labor Day in the form that I want to see it, but I'm going to show you some advantages right away. Next slide, please. Okay. The path forward. I had to load 24 and 25. That's about 150 maybe-ish files. Lots of data, probably 50 data elements in each file. I'm looking at loading the next 7 years over the next couple of months. From there, remember, this is all while we're still doing permits. We're looking at all kinds of digital applications in terms of making the applications and that a person fills out digital, so that we can drop it on the net, so that they can actually put in those pieces of data in the same form that you might do sitting from your home. Perhaps even get to a point where we can do it with a phone, certainly off an iPad. Then I wanted to put together an online viewer of that status. Snapshot of time, once a week, whatever it is, bi-weekly. This is what we know, so the public is informed, so they're not rushing the front doors as they're trying to push their permits forward. And then a calculator. Everyone comes in and goes, well, how much is that gonna be? Costs a significant amount of money in some cases, and they'd like to know before they walk through the door. And I think you can do an online calculator. I'm going to show you an example of that. Compliance tracker. You know, it's one thing to give them a permit. It's another thing to watch them build. And it's another to make sure they're staying in compliance. Well, how are we tracking that? Right now, it's a bit random. We know somebody's building, we drive by it, let's stop and make sure. I'd like to be able to make that into a schedule for Joel. Make that into a more predictable manner of, even though you're not doing it, you're doing it irregularly, you're doing it in a routine manner. And watching the compliance. I think compliance has probably been an issue a little bit. And then mapping, and I'll show you an example of that. We can go to the next slide. Along the way, we're still conducting business. This is the timeline that my goal to get this stuff done. Right away is the data integrity checks, making sure that what we've got in there is accurate. After that, we're working software and hardware issues, and I'm going to show you some examples of that. And then I want to get that load, even though I've got up there May and continuous, I want to get that load done hopefully by the 4th of July. All your historical files from what we call the G drive of at least what we know today. We may not know what's in there from 1989, but we'll know at least the last decade. And then by the end of the summer, look at summer 2026, be full up and running so that anybody, I can walk away and anybody can take it over. That's my goal. Next slide, please. Obviously, you can't read that. It is in your packet. That's just 24. You see all the fields that had to be loaded. But now when somebody comes in my office, I can go, what's your address? What's the last name of the owner? Right to it. And if there are 3 permits, it'll pull up all 3 permits at once. So I know you got a new construction, you put a deck on there and even put a shed out there. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, and they're color coded, by the way. Each one of those has a macro behind it. And when it comes to compliance inspections, if we're supposed to see them in 6 months, did we go back out there, it turns amber and then it turns red. It's encoded off the date of the permit. Okay, so these are just an example. That's the new automated form. It's full up, it works. The upper left, you clear the form. This is if you're just a homeowner at home and you want to do a permit, you can save the form to your own desktop. And in the center, that's a hot link for a brand new email for Angel Fire P&Z. It comes to 2 or 3 of us and they can launch that form straight to my desk. Each one of those is pull downs. Each one of those is what's called the radio button. There are certain ones that you can only select one. If you select this one over here, it doesn't select that one anymore. And it's called the radio button. If you notice at the bottom also, these are all digital. They can digitally sign. If they don't have it, they can get a free copy of Adobe Reader and digitally sign it so that we have signatures from owners. And they can do it from home. They can do it from Texas. They can do it from Colorado. Okay? And then a stamp in the lower right so that you know that it came from our office.
We gonna end up with an expiration date on that form at some point?
We can. I hadn't really thought about that, but I was thinking we should update it probably once a year. And there's some stuff on there that I've already seen might not be current or it may be redundant. Next slide, please. I'm a checklist guy, but more than that, I'd like to hand it to them. I'd like to have it online. Make sure that you go to the resort folks first. Make sure you do an encroachment permit and so on and so forth. And these checklists are hot right now, and I'm developing 3 or 4 more. And those can go online. Why can't they know before they get in here that they have to go to CID and so on and so forth? And it takes a lot of the, I don't want to call it guesswork, but a lot of the confusion and stress off the staff up front that may not know P&Z, but they're trying to help somebody out. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is totally automated. It's hot already. You can put in just the quantities and you'll see over there at the right, it starts totaling up for you. If you're a duplex or a multifamily home, it will tell you that automatically that it's by the square feet and that it's $20 extra for each unit that's in there, and it'll total it in the bottom right. At the end, you can clear the calculator and start over if you make any mistakes. And that's hot right now. That could go on the internet any day. And what that does is it gives them a clear estimate when they're coming through the door. It's not like you want how much? I need a second mortgage just for the permits. Okay? They'll know that already. And
You're not that bad.
next slide, please. So what's in the future? What am I talking about fall through the shoulder seasons and so on? Santos has been working with UNM, GIS, pushing this stuff to a map, much like your Google Earth, if you will. Those represent, it's just a representation of all your properties. Joel's on the road, he's got his telephone with him, and he notices that there's a deck being built. And he doesn't remember seeing it in the permit log. He can point to see the green dot, he can point to that address, hit the button, just like trying to find Starbucks in Albuquerque, hit the button, and that flies in. This guy's got, yep, he's got a deck permit. He's good to go on the fly. He can do that with his telephone. Okay? This is where we really need to be if we're gonna get to compliance with a one-man show. Otherwise, you need a team out there. Okay? So anyway, that's the future, but I've done this in the past. It does work. It just takes a lot of front end work. So what's the enemy? Time. Time. That's the biggest resource. It's not gonna cost a lot. We've got all the ability to do it right now. We have even the apps to do this right now. That automated form that I said, showed the application, I could see all our applications doing that. And that automated form we can do with the software and hardware that we have right now. So with that, any questions, any guidance? Is this making sense as a way forward for the PNC on top of doing permits and compliance?
Very much so.
And then I guess you'll have a link to the architecture committee on there too, right? Sure, easy to do.
It's easy to do. It's about efficiency, but it's more than anything. It's the only way I can get my head around this massive data. Is to be able to automate that. It's great.
It's been a long time coming, so thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Next is our Public Works Director, Kurt Epler.
Hard to follow you. What he said, but with water. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Clerk Strickland. Quick report on Public Works Departments. With Water Department, I want to report that final remaining work was done on the back basin well. The pad was poured around the wellhead, but the other significant step that needed to be taken, the old well was plugged. So we'll be doing a substantial completion walkthrough tomorrow at 9 o'clock and hopefully get that wrapped up. Any questions about back basin well? Okay. Water Department is starting to receive shipment of components for the booster pump upgrades that y'all were so graciously approving for us. It's gonna be another great step for our water system. We have started to receive those. Work's gonna be starting on that project and the pump and the booster station 5 upgrade starting on Monday. Work had been intended to start on it today, but we had an issue with Peralta well, one of our main wells, so we had to focus on that and getting an electrical panel replaced. Last week, I had about half of the water department staff out for training for their water certifications, and Arwen went for refreshers on wastewater and water certifications. And Streets Department, I'm sorry, if there are any questions about Water Department? Streets Department has been working on the temporary event center, building more parking space. We got the purchase order to start ordering that material last week and got started on that. And continuing to try to take care of immediate needs of maintenance on the roads, deal with changes in weather, all of that stuff. So it's kind of business as usual. In solid waste, we'll be presenting the results of the request for bid for the scales. We did get a respondent, and I'm satisfied with the response that we got. We did have a bit of a scary situation on Friday where we had both of the trash trucks break down at the same time, Friday before the weekend. We were able to get one going and also find another truck that we could rent short term, and that's what got us through the weekend. I don't think anybody even was aware that it happened.
I saw the short term one, so I suspected that was, I was wondering where that came from.
Yeah, Friday was as I say, Friday was a little sporty. No real changes in maintenance right now. The guys have been doing a good job, getting North Angel Fire Road swept up and we hope to start on areas over by the country club on the paved areas. Do need to go back to streets and inform everybody that the Country Club Drive repaving project is done, with the exception of one small piece of curb that it wasn't in the scope of work, but as GM Emulsions was paving and carrying the grade through, they saw that a section of curb had settled some. They didn't like how it looked. I don't like how it looked, so they're gonna fix that section. But other than that, I think even with some weather challenges, it went off pretty good, and I don't think there was too much interruption at the country club over Memorial Weekend. I think it went really smooth. I was really happy with the job that GM did. Did an inspection on it today, and it's definitely better than what we had before. We are still on schedule for the second week of June to pave South Angel Fire Road, Aspen Street, and we intend to add Squaw Valley onto it also. GM Emulsions has informed me that I should have the pricing tomorrow. But they have informed me that when they move in to do those others, that they'll add that other road onto it. So we may be seeking a special session for approval of that expenditure. Okay.
That was South Angel Fire, Aspen, and what?
Squaw Valley.
Thank you.
South Angel Fire and Aspen have already been approved.
Yes,
And we were hoping to do that last fall. After the winter, Director Eppers would like to have Squaw Valley. And so that would be the thing that the council would need to look at after the numbers come in.
Makes sense.
the price for squash should be very similar to Aspen Street. They're very similar in length. We are getting some cost savings because we're doing the milling of the old chip seal ourselves. We'll probably start milling up Squaw and the remaining section of South Angel Fire next week to have it done ahead of GM Emulsions. Mayor Lindsay is right. The Aspen Street and Angel Fire, South Angel Fire Road we're actually in budget for this year. We will be able to do that. It doesn't appear we're gonna have it done prior to the end of the year. And we'll be looking at adding Squaw and paying for that with Gold Bond dollars.
I have a solid waste question. I've been, like so many others, hauling pine needles this last week over to solid waste. And I had a conversation with Chief Vance and Captain Romo, who are not here. But my understanding is we may be able to start doing pine needles with Wildland, and they may use those to start igniting. But the holdup, I think, is payment. That Wildland doesn't have any payment processing. Are you involved in that at all, or is that all over on the fire?
Somewhat, but I don't think they've gotten exactly where they need to be to have, they need to have a point of sale. Slash, which they don't have now. It's something that's gonna be needed if they do start accepting stumps with the chart, anything like that. But essentially, if they feel that they're capable of disposing of the needles with the slash. We've basically been using them as filler. You know, they don't weigh much and just to fill space in a truck going to the landfill. And I think everybody was, I feel that to have that one-stop shop for everybody related to slash and fire protection and everything kind of makes sense. And it's one less thing they got to deal with at solid waste.
So that floor has been full of needles for the last week every time I've been over there. So I know there's lots of us doing it. So I was just curious, is there a timeline on when we think we'll have a point of sale, or still out in the future?
I haven't had a chance to follow up with Chief Vance, so I wouldn't even want to guess on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This is our police chief, Jerry Hildry.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Before you have our monthly recap. This is for April of 2025 as compared to March of 2025. Calls for service, as expected, going into April did decline about 18% to a total of 181. Calls for service incidents declined by 9, going down to 53. There were no warrants generated. There was 1 arrest for April compared to March, which had 7. Crash reports, I am happy to say, were 0 for April. And traffic citations were 33 for April as compared to 55 in March. I took advantage of having the officers do some online training during a slower period of time, and we continued that now going into May, and did some in-person trainings as well. So with that, the only other thing is, I believe a couple of meetings ago, I reported on our progress, the beginning of rewriting our policies and procedures manual for the police department. There's some things that are a little bit archaic and some that are a little bit outdated. That is now well underway. I reviewed the first 5 new policies from Police One, which is our contract company that is being paid for by the New Mexico Self-Insured Fund. So there's no cost to the village or the police department for their service on this. And it's actually Lexipol, which is a division of Police One. And I reviewed the first 5 today. So I think we're pretty much on track to finish that by the end of this year and have something, hopefully by January, to present to council of the brand new policies and procedures for the police department. With that, I stand for any questions. Yes.
Chief, what's the rule on crashes? If 2 cars collide and there's no injury, but they call 911, what's?
Well, the first rule is don't have a crash. No, sir. If either party requests, be it 911 or through the business line, and even in the absence of injury, if there's property damage over $500 and either party wants a report for insurance purposes, which we see quite frequently, the non-at-fault vehicle does want that report, even if it's minor damage or scrapes, then we will do one.
Thank you.
The only time we are hesitant to is if somebody comes in and says, 3 weeks ago, this and this happened, and we have no scene to go look at or investigate or a way to substantiate that that's not a fraudulent claim being submitted.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Down this evening, staff reports, our code enforcement officer, Joel Legg.
Mayor Lindsay, Councilman, Mrs. Strickland. I just wanted to give you guys a monthly recap on code enforcement and a stat update as far as citations, stop work orders, and violation notices that have been issued throughout the month of April. So I'll start out with this. In the month of April 2025, there are approximately 16 calls for service documented in the CAD system, which is our computer-aided dispatch system through Red River Dispatch. And 6 calls for service in Mark 43, which is our online reporting system. So I'll start out with this. This is our citation listing. I obtained this through the court clerk. It's labeled through April 1st all the way to April 30th. And here there were 6 code citations, 6 calls for service, 2 stop work orders, and 3 violation notices issued. So it's documented in here. And next I'll move on to the actual CAD system through Red River Dispatch. These are the calls that were generated through them. There were a total of 16 throughout the month of April, starting from April 1st to April 30th. They all range. And that's the stat update as far as that goes. In conclusion, as summer comes into full swing, these stat numbers should increase. Code enforcement, Angel Fire Police Department, and planning and zoning are coordinating very closely in an effective manner. So, any questions?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that sums up our staff reports. Are there any committee reports this evening? If not, we'll move on to new business. Item A, I'd like to, for a public hearing, will now open. The Village of Angel Fire presents the following to the public. Wholesale beer for Nichols Brewing. Nichols Brewing. Wholesale beer for Knuckles Brewing is now open for public comment.
You have Heidi. It looks like she's gonna speak.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not gonna
Oh, I
speak.
thought you were gonna
I just wanted
speak.
to show my face. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, if nothing there. Wholesale beer for Knuckles Brewing is now closed for public comment. Moving on to item B, I'd like to open discussion of wholesale beer for Knuckles Brewing. Clerk Strickland.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council. I'm here before you with Miss Heidi Jones, who's online on behalf of Knuckles Brewing. We were here before you all April 8th. They were requesting a liquor license. You all agreed and had approved of that. Now they are requesting to do wholesale beer. And this hearing, well, this request has been published in the paper for 30 days. We haven't received any communication for or against it. That's all I have. Heidi, do you have anything to add?
No.
Very
Thank you.
well, then Heidi and I will stand for any questions.
Questions, I'd ask Mayor Pro Tem how to make a motion.
I make a motion to approve wholesale beer for Knuckles Brewery.
Second.
Roll call vote on item B. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
and Councilor Humber.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Moving on to item C, I'd like to open discussion to approve resolution 2025-21, various bars. Mr. Rendon, are you gonna present this evening?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you get 4 budget adjustment requests, the first 3 are related to Kosh. Bar number 1 establishes a budget, an IT budget for planning and zoning. So when we set that up, we basically just covered the cost that Mr. Bourgeois set up whenever he arrived here. Bar number 2 is growth in core services on the Kosh contract. So as our needs here, as we grow workforce and modernize, the cost of that contract is going up. Bar number 3 is being established to cover costs that were not within the scope of the Kosh contract. And so that wasn't set up previously. And so we're at about 46K right now. So that's the reason why that one's sitting at 50. 50 should get us to the end of the year. Bar number 4 was establishing a budget line for airport. And that's classified as professional services. It's to be a little bit more precise, it's engineering services.
Questions or comments? Not, I would ask Mayor Pro Tem how to make a motion.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2025-21, various bars.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item C. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
and Councilor Humber.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Moving on to item D, I'd like to open discussion to approve a request to subdivide 45.324 acre parcel into 2 lots. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Clerk Strickland. This request went to planning and zoning back in March. It was advertised to all property owners within 200 feet at that time. The request is to take what had been previously 14 separate lots that had been consolidated into one 44-acre lot, is to divide out 10 acres of that and then leave a balance of 35 as a separate lot. The size of this request exceeds the amounts that would normally be considered for an administrative review. There's been no comments since it's last been heard by P and Z. We did have a property owner testify requesting some more information about what could be built on the property that's remaining. The 10-acre request is the one that has the existing structure on it. And then the 35 acres is still undeveloped. There were no other questions that have been received from the office since this was advertised for consideration in council. Stand for any questions you may have.
Are there any requirements for subdividing that we're gonna trip over doing this or no?
No, that's a good point, is that, planning and zoning recommended approval without any pre-existing conditions. So this request is specifically to divide this into 2 lots is what you have before you. There's no additional right of way that's required. There's already water, servicing up to the lot. The difference is there's no sanitary sewer, but P and Z felt that was not a condition to be placed on this plat.
Is there any new lot lines that'll be with the subdivision, or is it going back to an original lot line?
It's not going back to an original, I think originally, and we've had some conversations with Resort, just trying to find it on the subdivision map, because the subdivision map originally shows 5 or 7 lots, but that has all been reconfigured into one big lot. And so it's almost an even split into a third and a 2/3 of what's there now. So if you drive in a Back Basin, it's the huge curve,
Yeah,
and it's like 40 feet down below the road. So where the house is located on the eastern portion, there's gonna be a 10-acre carve out for that.
for access, I mean, there's gonna be access to that,
They're gonna utilize the existing access that's there to service the house, yes.
and then,
The balance of it, there are portions of that lot that come right off of Back Basin that have about an acre for developable land. The rest of it kind of just drops into where the creek is, so.
there will be access. to-
There would be access to that lot, currently serviced off Back Basin, yes. And it's part of the concern that we heard at P and Z is that what if they wanted to build right up? I don't know how you would get access to something that's 40 feet below the road with, it's almost a sheer drop, you know, but there are portions on the western edge of this new lot that it would be a whole lot easier to develop on.
No further discussion. That's Mayor Pro Tem Howard to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve a request to subdivide 45.324 acre parcel into 2 lots.
Second.
Roll call vote on item D. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
and Counselor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion passed.
And on item A, open discussion to approve resolution 2025-20, appoint Mark Manley as Director of the Angel Fire Public Improvement District. Mr. Manley?
Happy to. I knew Brett was going to do it, but Resort's entitled to a director on the PID board. This simply swaps me for Dan Rakes, who I'm happy to report is convalescing, doing much better. But this was all planned to get off the PID board. The PID did approve me unanimously at the last meeting. And I think that's any questions you have, happy to answer.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Howell?
I make a motion to approve resolution 2025-20 to appoint Mark Manley as Director of the Angel Fire Public Improvement District.
I'll second.
Who's second? Thank you.
Jeff? Did you have a comment? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have some comments.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Latrell Joy, I've owned my home here since 2006. I'm very familiar with the PID, even though many documents are missing from where they should be filed, and have concerns about this appointment. I have other concerns about the PID, but I think that's not a topic for tonight. However, appointing Mr. Manley to the board is a conflict. There is an agreement between the Angel Fire Public Improvement District, the Village of Angel Fire, Colfax County, and Angel Fire Resort Operations. Depending on what copy you have of this agreement, which has not been posted and was not approved by the council at the time that it was should have been. It was signed later by the mayor, but there is no record of it ever having been posted to come before a council, which I'm sure you all were not. And so I think it's a conflict based on this agreement, which is very much in favor of the resort. And for Mr. Manley to be appointed to the board and giving a voting position is a conflict. Now, he sits currently, I think, as an advisory member, and he certainly, there's nothing here that says to take him away from that. This agreement that was signed in supposedly in November of 2021 obligates each entity and benefits each entity. So I don't think that you can put an employee of the resort onto the PID board where he has a vote. And I will tell you, this agreement expires in December of 2026, which means that there are going to be some serious discussions about the PID between now and the time that occurs. And I don't think the resort needs any additional votes in order, if we're going to have that agreement amended, extended. And as we stand here today, I think that the agreement is void. And there's been a lot of action taken by tax sales and other sales that have been affected by the agreement. So tonight, as I understand the posting, it's simply to appoint Mr. Manley, and I know Mr. Manley, we've met, to the board. I think that's a conflict. I think there are other people in this village who can serve on that PID board and represent the interests of all of the citizens and the residents of Angel Fire. So I would ask you to deny that appointment and to appoint someone who does not have a conflict, either as a developer, an employee, a council member of the village, or anyone that's a party to this agreement. Do you have any questions?
I'm afraid I don't know as much about the PID as I'm sure people here do. I didn't buy a PID lot, so I don't know the ins and outs of it, but aren't we functionally replacing one employee with another? Isn't that what
No.
the vote is tonight?
No, Mr. Rakes is not an employee. He just is a board member.
Mr. Rakes is the
Is the-
senior attorney for the resort.
Well, if he-
Of our resort.
If he is, that, well, there's the other problem. If he is in fact, then I think,
Mr. Rakes is, sorry, Mr. Man.
Yeah, may I respond? Again, the resort has the right to a director. I'm simply replacing a director. When an issue comes before the PID board that directly involves the resort, Mr. Rakes in the past, and I will in the future, of course, recuse myself from that vote. The agreement that Ms. Joy is referring to has been vetted by legal counsel, by your legal counsel. It's actually been amended recently. It's been reviewed by your legal counsel and ours. It's actually been extended. The resort did not, was not required to. We did agree to extend the agreement. We are exceedingly concerned with the financial health of the PID. I've been before this board, I've been before P and Z. My concern with the financial health of the PID is well known. And that is where I am focused. So I can assure all of you, I will take off my resort only hat. I look at the PID issues as a community member that lives on a house built on a PID lot, and I've purchased the lot next door, which is also a PID lot. I am, as I said, vested in the future health of the public improvement district. Again, the resort's entitled to the position. We're simply swapping one resort employee for another resort employee. And when matters that come up before the PID that are directly related to the resort, and the resort has an interest, I will of course recuse myself from any vote, just as Dan has for many, many years. Do you have any other questions?
May I respond? I find the information that Mr. Manley is telling you interesting because we have done an extensive research on the minutes from the PID meetings, the notices from the PID meetings, and we have very little to show for it. We actually did a request for public information to get those documents. So a lot of what's being done in those PID meetings is not reflected in any minutes. I have no idea what he's talking about. It recently was amended. There's been no notice. All of the people in here who have been involved with PID lots are entitled to notice of what's going on in those meetings. And if you're not doing minutes the way they're supposed to be done, which they are not, then we've got a problem. So whether they're entitled to an appointment or not is governed, I believe, by the original PID documents. But I don't see that appointing another resort member to that board is really good. Now, he tells you that he's worried about the health, financial health. I don't blame him. I am too. Anybody who's made those PID payments should be, because statistically, it's been very poor in terms of enforcement. We have, I believe it's about 48 lots who have never made one PID payment. So who's carrying the burden for those PID payments? The ones carrying the burden, they're twofold. One of them is all the people who are in the PID who are still paying. And the others are those people who've gone to tax sales and purchased, and at that tax sale had to bring current all of those PID payments that hadn't been made. I'm not worried about the resort. That's a totally separate entity. What I'm worried about is the people who own the lots. And the way it's structured currently is not good. And it certainly has not benefited the financial position of the PID. This agreement, which some of you don't have and probably never seen, but you will, provides that you can have a tax sale. And if nobody bids, then the PID can buy the lot at the tax sale. After, supposed to be done after the original bid process. The problem is the PID has been selling those lots for $5,000. And they're not doing what they're supposed to in terms of advertising that lot's for sale. If you're really worried about the financial, then sell those lots for their fair market value. But that's really not what we're here about today.
I think we're starting to get into the weeds of the PID. Thank you for your time. I'd love to visit with you more about this.
You will. You will. Thank you.
Believe we have a motion and a second.
Okay. Roll call vote on item E. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
and Counselor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion passed.
And moving on to item G. I'd like to open discussion to approve a MOU between Colfax County and the Village of Angel Fire.
Oops, you. Item F.
F.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'll back up to item F. I'd like to open discussion to approve resolution 2025-22, update bank and financial accounts for the Village of Angel Fire. Manager Weir's not here to speak on this evening.
Matt.
Clerk Strickland.
So this item. Excuse me. Mayor and council, this item was initially brought before you guys on April 22nd. This is in regards to moving our financial institution over. You guys had passed a motion at that time. You guys are all signatories on it. Where we fell through is Brett also needs to be a signatory on this, so we need a new resolution overriding the previous one. So if you guys do agree to pass this, I will need signatures from all of you before you leave today. And I'll stand for any questions.
Can we do this without Brett here? You need his signature tonight, or you'll get it later.
Well,
He
can sign. Yeah, he can sign later. It's really your guys' call, whatever you feel comfortable with, but he is aware of this. The finance department's aware as well. If you guys want to ask them anything, they could probably explain it better than I can.
Does this account require one signature or two?
Adrian, Heather? Two.
Two.
Not any other questions, or does Mayor Pro Tem have to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve resolution 2025-22, update bank and financial accounts for the Village of Angel Fire.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item F. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
and Counselor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Now we'll move on to item G. I'd like to open discussion to approve an MOU between Colfax County and the Village of Angel Fire. Mr. Gilmer isn't here this evening, but I'll just let you know, the purpose of this MOU is marketing grant match participation. I believe that's for some open grants that we have. I without referencing, well, here it is. The grant match of 20%. Or $22,000.
Looks like it's for the marketing grant match participation, rural air service enhancement match program, and site work related to airport hangar repositioning.
In the amount of we're totaling $22,000. Any questions or discussion? I'll ask Mayor Pro Tem how to make the motion.
I make a motion to approve an MOU between Colfax County and the Village of Angel Fire.
Second.
Roll call vote on item G. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
and Counselor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Postponing item H, moving on to item I, discussion to approve of Mayor and Council appointing Bruce Jasmine as an alternate judge. I have Rich Hill here, Judge Hill, to present.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My current alternate judge has some serious health issues, and she had notified the court that she will not be available for at least the next 6 to 8 months. And I have approached Mr. Bruce Jasmine to ask if he would be willing to take this role as second alternate. There is no negative budget consequence in this, but I feel the court should have an alternate judge available in case if something happens to the judge not being able to make it or becoming, indisposed somehow.
Questions or discussion? Not as Mayor Pro Tem Adam make a motion.
I make a motion to approve the mayor appointing Bruce Jasmine as alternate judge.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item I. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
and Counselor Humber.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Judge. Moving on to item J, I'd like to have a discussion to approve approval of results from RFD 2025-001. Unattended weighing system for transfer station.
Mayor, council, and Clerk Strickland. The RFB request for bid, 2025-001 was for unattended weighing, system for the transfer station, basically scales. It was due on the 21st at 11 o'clock. The village received one, bid, for $397,876.69. This is scheduled to come out of the solid waste budget. And I'll stand for any questions you may have.
I believe, is this the one, Director Albert, did you present this in a work session?
Yes.
Is this the same system and
Yes.
vendor you discussed in a previous work session?
Yes.
Any other questions, discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Howe, if you make a motion.
I make a motion for the approval of results from RFB 2025-001 unattended weighing system for transfer station.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item J. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
and Counselor Humber.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Put on item K, I'd like to have a discussion for the approval of Text My Gov information portal. Director Epler.
Good evening again, Mayor Lindsay, Council, Clerk Strickland, Mayor Pro Tem Howe. What this is, I have to say, in looking through the packet, I had hoped that, we'd included a link in there of the first presentation I got of this. I didn't see it in the packet, so I don't know if y'all were able to view the presentation on this product. If not, I'll go ahead and give a quick overview of what it is. Since starting this job and encountering first challenges on, excuse me, day one and day two, realized that one of our community really likes to be informed, as we all do, about when there's an incident or a challenge going on, and we do our best to get the information out. But I think that we're lacking a little bit. We could take it a step further. Currently, our process is people that are signed up for alerts on our website will get a text. And how this process starts, I'll use a water leak as an example. We realize we have a leak. We know it's going to affect homes. I send an email to Miss Shay Tiblish, who's the administrator of our website, and she posts that we have a water leak. Okay. Hopefully we have located the leak, and we know that in isolating lines, what areas this is going to affect. So in this announcement that I emailed to her, I will get on the map and try to list every single road that it's going to affect. Okay, and this text goes out and people get it. Very hard to get all the detail at this point. Okay, we know we have a leak. We are starting to address it. We have a process where we have to call for line locates for existing utilities. They have emergency locates. They have 2 hours to get the locates. Okay, but we get the announcement out for the water leak. And obviously everybody wants an update right away. So the phone starts ringing, the on-call phone. Voicemail fills up immediately. Or when somebody calls and they're already on the phone with somebody, it immediately goes to voicemail. They can't get an answer. People cannot get information. What Text My Gov allows us to do is is not only send the update out to people, but if it's an isolated area that we know is going to be affected, I can get on TextMyGov, highlight the area that is going to be affected, send out the notice, and only the people within that area are going to get the notice. Okay? Because there's so many times we post out that we have a water leak and it's off of tank 2. Well, people are calling from the other side of the valley, asking if they're gonna run out of water too. Okay, we can isolate the notifications. And the other thing it gives us the ability to do is give updates on the progress. Okay, again, to give updates, the process starts over with Ms. Shea, who does a wonderful job, by the way, of getting the updates out. The process starts over again. Okay, leak has been found. Line locates have been called in. They will be done within 2 hours. So I email it to her, she posts it, so forth and so on. We get the locates, we start digging, we find the problem, get an estimate of time of how long it's gonna take. Boom, here goes another. We bounce another notification through Shay, she posts it. You guys are following me, okay? What TextMyGov allows us to do is on the spot in the field, provide an update to those people that are in that highlighted zone. Okay. And the other thing that it allows us to do is if people want an update prior, we can already have the current update posted. And by simply them texting in with keywords like water leak, it'll give them the current update. Okay. And what this allows our guys to do is as they're working the problem, when they get an opportunity or they're moving from one stage to the next, they can come up and do the update and get back to work and not have to be answering the phone. It's as simple as that. But we can give people more current, more updated information without having to go through the whole process. And as I said, Ms. Tiblish does a wonderful job, but I'll use an example as it was very frustrating for me. We had a water main break on a big snow day and needed to get an update out. It was gonna affect a big area. I get the email put together and I send it to Miss Shea. A little bit of a delay. She finally gets it. She gets it posted. She got the email when she was in Albuquerque at the state basketball tournament watching her son play basketball. Okay. There's got to be a better way. And now, I'm not going to set this up where every employee can just post updates. There'll be focused people in water department, and we're going to utilize this tool in streets department as well to be able to inform people of road closures, areas where the road crews are going to be working. And we can focus that information when needed to small groups of people. So we don't have everybody in town wondering if they're gonna be affected, or we can get better information out this way. I think it's a very affordable program. I hope I can get approval for it today, and I will make sure that y'all can see the presentation. But as I'm presenting it to you, it is a 3-year agreement that we wanna do. And I see it as just another great opportunity for us to better communicate with the community, which we need to do a better job of. Our communication's never gonna be perfect. But if there's a tool available to us where we can give people more real-time reports and updated relevant information. And because I've gotta say, one thing that holds up some people from getting information is other people requiring too much. Sometimes the phone call can turn into stories about, well, back when I was a boy, I had to fix a water leak one time and the phone's tied up. So in a nutshell, and I apologize, we weren't able to see the presentation on this before. But it is plain and simple. It's a tool for us to better communicate with the community, to keep them informed during incidents. We're gonna start off utilizing it with streets and water department. I see this being able to expand into all departments of the village as a way for people to get good information. And it's gonna be very, very valuable when it's information that we need to get out for a certain portion of the community.
Be great if Kit Carson could get on there too.
Yes, sir.
One question I had was, do you do like homeowners just need to go into this website and sign up to give them their information, or you already have that?
Okay, great question. That is an option. Initially, we will establish the database based on, contact information that we have within our billing system. Some contact information can be gathered through the post office. As we know, the post office isn't the best option for us. We have a lot of residents and homeowners up here that don't have post office boxes here. So what we will do is utilize between the data that we can get from the post office and what we have in our billing addresses to get as many people on this as possible. But anybody who isn't contacted will still be able to sign up on the website. It'll be a widget on the website.
So, example, let's say that we have a fire just over the hill and everyone in the village tries to call in at once. Is it scalable to handle
Absolutely.
a massive volume of calls?
Yes, it can be village-wide information. I see the benefit right now is being able to use localized groups because that's what we've had to deal with more. But absolutely, it has the capability to inform everybody. And what it'll give us the ability to do when other departments are using it is that as fire department can provide updates, they can put a text in there for the update. Anybody puts those keywords in, everybody's gonna get that same update.
And the cost?
$4,000 per year. Initially, the cost will be split between joint utility and streets department.
I guess if the fire department utilizes it too, they could absorb some of that.
Yeah, I think, Manager Weir felt like through the first year we'd see how it works with the public works departments. And my hope is that sooner that it's gonna be so good that sooner than that, everybody's gonna wanna get in on it. So, and it's the goal is to just be able to provide better information to the community. Because when we have a catastrophe, a water leak, a big snowstorm, people need information. It's traumatizing. It's rough for everybody. And there are only so many phones.
Thank you very much. No further discussion. I'd ask Mayor Pro Tem now to make a motion.
I make a motion for the approval of TextMyGov information portal.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item K. Mayor Pro Tem Pennell,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
and Councilor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
On item L, I'd like to open discussion for the approval of resolution 2025-23 for site plan for an R6 zoning district within the Mountain View Overlay District. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I believe items L and O are the same. Item L is supposed to be a site plan for the property that is in the overlay. It's the property behind the Remax. That's 7 acres for 44 new homes.
So I think the packet we have is correct. This is the 44
Correct.
resolution 2023. I think the challenge, what's wrong is the R6 doesn't belong there. It belongs on the other one.
That's correct. That reference goes to letter O.
Yeah.
Because that is the R6. It is a site plan consideration in the overlay. It requires this process to go prior to any permits being submitted for approval.
The R6 needs to get slid down as all.
So I think in your packet, you'll see a site plan and elevations. It's proposed 3-story construction, first level garage, living quarters, and a second and third floor. There's been some conversation with the applicant of maybe revising this site plan down, but the maximum that they're trying to put is 44 units. They may look at maybe 38 or 40, but so long as overall it's within the envelope, if it's less than what was previously approved, we will be able to work with that administrator. But other than that, this would comply with the 50-foot setback off of Highway 64. It's more than 50 feet off of 434. There is conversation about connecting it to the private road to the south that ties into Freya. That I believe has the correct right of way width as water and sewer. It just has not been built to village standards for the village to accept it. I did relate to the applicant, and this is also the same applicant who's looking at a letter, well, the next case about commercial leases for dumpsters to try to incorporate that into that plan. But overall, this is the request for residential units on the property that's zoned O2 in the Mountain View overlay. So every questions you may have.
We're on M.
L.
We're on L. We're taking out the R6.
Oh, you're taking out those.
R6 needs to move down. Put on item.
So while they're,
Yeah.
this, because it's in the overlay, is the only reason this needs council approval,
That's
right?
correct. So that's correct. So this went to P and Z as well for consideration earlier this month. There's no discussion outside of when can this get started?
If there's no further discussion, I'd ask Mayor Pro Tem how to make a motion on item L.
I make a motion for approval of resolution 2025-23 for site plan for a district within the Mountain View overlay district.
Second.
Roll call vote on item L. Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Howell,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
I had to recuse myself on this
okay,
one.
and Counselor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Moving on to item M, make open discussion for the approval of resolution 2025-24 for site plan for 30 dwelling units and commercial building. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Clerk Strickland. This is the same applicant who's looking to develop the property between Zeb's and True Value. It's a 2-acre parcel. This went to P and Z for consideration earlier this month. The site plan you have shows a 2,500 square foot commercial build out in addition to parking between that building and 434. It's again 3-story construction, first level for parking, residential living quarters on second, third floor. Every questions you may have.
No questions, I'd ask Mayor Pro Tem how to make the motion.
Make a motion for approval of resolution 2025-24 for site plan for 30 dwelling units and commercial building.
Second.
Roll call vote on item M. Mayor Pro Tem Howell,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
I had to recuse myself.
very well, and Counselor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Moving on to item N, I'd like to open discussion for the approval of resolution 2025-25 for variance for setbacks for propane tanks. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Clerk Strickland. This item is actually more than just the variance. This was advertised to all property owners within 200 feet that it's a variance request. The idea on the site is to install propane tanks, kind of in rather than individual tanks for each unit, there would be 5 tanks to serve and meter individual units that way. But the only space available is in a required side yard setback. So that requires a variance to place that in that zone. You'll notice on the site plan that we've got the 10-foot setback highlighted. It's not clear where exactly it's going to be 70 feet from this mark, 20 feet from this mark. But the request is to actually place it in the side yard setback, however it can be designed to serve these units. The second part of the request out of 3 is a conditional use permit, and that all 30 units are to be available for rent. And in an R6 district, that requires a conditional use permit subject to a site plan. The site plan we're asking you to consider is one that shows buildable areas. So you can place 10 units in this zone, 7 units in this zone. And part of that conversation is, I think you're seeing this discussion about, do we want porches? Do we want dormers? if a site plan shows it, that's great. I think that's still ongoing, and we would rather prefer all that to happen in these zones of 7, 6, 10. And if it has a porch, great. If it's got a dormer, great, and we don't have to come back and revise the site plan because now we've got a 6-foot addition on this rectangle. Lastly, it's because it still is in the overlay. It does require site plan approval. It's the same site plan we're requesting for the conditional use permit with the buildable zones and the setbacks highlighted. There are 2 committees that have actually looked at this request. Planning and zoning recommended approval. It's in your staff report, but they also added, since it's a conditional use, 2 additional conditions. One, that landscaping be installed at the completion of the last unit being delivered. And second, that all units be on a permanent foundation. The Workforce Housing Committee looked at this extensively for several months, and they've identified that just whatever really works for foundations and skirting should be considered. That landscaping, what can be done in 2025, since it's projected that these would be delivered closer to the end of fall, where it may be challenging to plant anything, of what's available to plant or seed, but really have it done in 2026 when it's actually viable to plant things. And so in your resolution, it identifies the P and Z comments. It identifies the recommendations from Workforce Housing. At a minimum, staff just would remind you that we've got a variance request to allow propane tanks in the setback, a conditional use permit to allow all the units to be available for rent, the site plan approval since it's in the overlay. Whatever conditions the council, within their discretion, feel is appropriate, they're listed right above the motion. You'll see the elements that were recommended from Workforce Housing. You'll also see the recommendations I mentioned from P and Z about foundations and landscaping. Stand for any questions you may have.
Is there gonna be any shielding of the propane tanks?
They'll be buried. And that's part of the request, is that in order for them to be in the setback, they have to be buried.
Is there any, proposals for a fence or a perimeter around this?
It's ongoing, is my understanding.
We've had some pretty significant discussions, and maybe if Kurt wants to weigh in. Workforce Housing talked extensively about doing drift fencing primarily. But I think the concern is if we do that poorly, we could make the drifting worse versus making it better.
Drift fencing.
So the other fencing that Workforce Housing has talked about would be if an individual unit wants like a dog run fence, but that would be handled later, there is no fence on the site plan as it's currently shown.
Is there any consideration for maybe the landscaping to work as shielding or perimeter landscaping?
Not that we've had no landscaping discussions, other than basically what's happened is we have a recommendation from P and Z to approve the site plan, which is required. Some of the recommendations that P and Z is making, like the landscaping, they want it done when the last unit is set. Workforce Housing Committee felt that might be a little bit too tight of a timeline. If we end up setting the last unit October 15th, just picking a date, it may be far too late to effectively do any landscaping for the season then. So essentially, what we have is P and Z making recommendations and Workforce Housing making some different recommendations. And it's left to us to choose which one we like and which one we don't.
It's the dinner menu, select what you feel is appropriate on the conditions. And I'd like to point out, council, you can not require any conditions, if that's at your discretion. But staff felt it's important to show you the 2 different recommendations that came from a standing committee and the Workforce Housing Committee that I think is appropriate to share. But again, this is well within your discretion of how you'd like to proceed.
And I'm even inclined to table or postpone, even have a work session. I think there's more information that needs to be discussed, quite frankly, if we're going beyond just propane tanks this evening.
Okay.
Is that my understanding?
Well, so the challenge is this resolution was basically drafted by P and Z, and if we vote to approve it, it will tie our hands into doing the landscaping right away. And the thought was,
actually, at the council level, you can take the P and Z recommendation and amend it. That's still within your discretion. So if you wanted to take action on this item tonight, and just take some of the recommendations from workforce housing, that's well within your discretion. The other elements that P and Z did carry forward for your consideration is approval of the variance, propane tanks must be buried. Variance in the setback, that, the units can be available for rent. And that we agree with this site plan. Those, I think, are consistent with the two committees liking what they've seen and wanting them to be buried. It's the other conditions, again, at the council level, you can choose to accept some, ignore them all, or take them all. It's really within your purview of how you'd like to proceed, but the fundamentals still remain. The variance and the setbacks for buried propane, a site plan, and that these units be available for rent.
So for instance, if we made a motion and deleted this last whereas, that would,
And that's what I think there's a lot of, unless the council's prepared to have that discussion this evening. Or at least, only make the motion to include the propane tanks, the 30 units for rent.
Mhm.
And, the
Site plan. If you want to hold this to talk about it more, that's also well within your right too. I don't want to feel that we've got to do this right now, but if,
I want to have the landscaping in there 100%, but I understand the timing. I mean,
What if you were just to include, landscaping must be designed?
well, I think workforce housing has a more flexible condition with respect to landscaping. Is what you can do in 2025, let's do that, but it's really a 2026 project, is in essence what workforce housing is proposing.
and the same was true on the permanent foundation. Workforce Housing Committee was not against doing permanent foundations, but they were actually weighting the costs. What they would all like to see is a roof extension over the front door. And if that means we end up with 4 piers to set these units instead of a full stem wall foundation, and we can save a couple $1,000 over here to get the roof, they were leaving it more flexible as we're still figuring it out. So I guess my only point is moving this forward, having an approved site plan today, if we can find a way to pass that resolution, keeps us moving towards Rocky's June 2nd date, that we'll have an approved site plan by council. We'll have the grant funds available for us to reimburse to, and we can begin work after that essentially.
yeah, but I think, to keep Rocky's timeframe, and we have plenty of time to have these other discussions.
For sure.
So I would ask Mayor Pro Tem Howe to make a motion only on the approval of the rental of 30 units. The site plan, I guess the site plan first, the rental of 30 units, and to allow the variance for setbacks for propane tanks. And eliminate all others in the resolution at this time.
So we could just strike that one.
The planning and zoning recommendation. Not that it won't be revisited, but it won't be voted on in this meeting.
I strongly say it should be revisited.
For sure.
100%. I just don't think I'm prepared to.
So we'll delete this paragraph.
Mayor Pro Tem Howe, if you're prepared to make a motion.
Well, I'm prepared to start making. I make a motion for approval of resolution 2025-25 for variance for setbacks for propane tanks with the deletion of the whereas paragraph reading, the Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed this application and sends a positive recommendation with the following conditions. Landscaping must be installed in conjunction with the delivery of the final unit. Number 2, all manufactured homes must be set on a permanent foundation.
2 other items. site plan and allow for windows.
So those are included in the resolution above. You just read what we're deleting out of the resolution.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item N. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
Counselor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion with modifications passed.
And move on to item O. I'd like to open discussion for the approval of resolution 2025-26, the amendment of the time period condition for the property located 2754 Highway 64.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Clerk Strickland, this is the DOT contractor's maintenance yard that was approved 2 years ago to allow them to store their equipment, plus to allow 2 RVs for overnight stays for their employees. All the conditions in the original permit are requesting to remain the same. The only condition item that they need amendment to is the time lane. Originally, it was just a 24-month permit that expired on the 9th of May. Their application was submitted in April. We had a challenge in scheduling it for P and Z and council prior to your 9th, because one of the cases at P and Z required notification to property owners in addition to normal notifications. So a spot visit, surprise inspection was also done by code compliance and P and Z director Bourgeois. They also had conversations with the foreman on site to look over the conditions of the property. And so this request is just to give them an additional 18 months. You've seen some of the work that they've started on this new phase. It's along Highway 64, widening the shoulders on the north side of Highway 64, replacing and installing new culverts. There's going to be turn lanes at 434 and 64, and also I think improvements to the turn lane in front of the RVs park. Those could not be completed in the 24-month period in addition to the work in the canyon. So Mr. Bourgeois is still present if you have any questions about his site visits as well.
So question, the alignment of 434 to 64, for years, we've always talked about making that a 90-degree meeting. Is there a possibility that'll be included?
I don't know to the extent of that. I do know that they are making improvements at that intersection with respect to an alignment. I don't know.
Okay.
Further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Howe, can you make a motion?
Make a motion for the approval of resolution 2025-26, the amendment of the time period condition for property located at 2754 Highway 64.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item O. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
and Counselor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion passed.
This evening, item P, I'd like to open discussion for approval of a lobbying agreement with Eric Martinez, Government Relations LLC. I'll let you know that Eric Martinez, well, our lobbyist, Adon Estrada, took it upon himself to hire Mr. Martinez to assist him in this last legislative session. And we were impressed with Mr. Estrada and Mr. Martinez and the results that we got from the latest legislative session. And we are looking to hire Eric Martinez as an additional lobbyist for the Village of Angel Fire, in addition to Adon Estrada. Again, the return on investment here is enormous for the village. And Mr. Martinez is even currently working on some DOT issues with very quick and great results for the Village of Angel Fire currently. I stand for any questions.
Mr. Eric Martinez is online, just so you know.
And do we know the amount of this?
That is on here, I believe.
Thank you.
You want to state it for the record, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Howe?
I'll read it. Service contract will include 12-month contract with a fee of $50,000, a down payment of $5,000, due at execution of contract, followed by monthly payments of $37.50, due on the first day of each month. This service fee includes all in-state travel, meals, and entertainment costs. I can read on, but that's the gist.
There's no further questions or discussion. I'd ask Mayor Pro Tem Howe to make a motion.
Make a motion for the approval of lobbying agreement with Eric Martinez, Government Relations.
Second.
Roll call vote on item P. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
and Counselor Humbert. Motion passed.
This meeting is adjourned.